Hi everyone, in this video I want to address the topic of loneliness, depression, suicidal thoughts, or grief from heartbreak and separation from someone, as well as it's a continuation of the topic that I have presented in my past videos, and I want to delve a little bit more deeper at some elements of things that I have missed in my other videos. Considering the in my first video when I was referring to the girl who made a skit on how it is existing in Indian families, many people from Asia or who have these kind of family life will resonate with the skit irrespective of which continent you're from, or which whether you were raised in a developed country or a less developed country, because this kind of family life can be presented to any one of us, like how she presented in the video. But she doesn't realize this. She's actually, and her family also doesn't realize it. But irrespective of their socioeconomic status, if a family operates like how they operated in that skit, they are actually one of the privileged class of people on earth whose life lesson, when they are going through grief, when they are going through heartbreak, when they are going through some loss that seems like a unsurmountable loss, it's actually not really that unsurmountable. It's actually not an obstacle that they can't endure by themselves, and it's not a challenge that is that hard as they perceive it to be at the moment of time when they are grieving the loss. And why is it not that hard a loss or that difficult a challenge? Because she is lucky enough to have a father who asks her why she is crying. She's lucky enough to have a mother who's ready to cook for her good food when she is heartbroken and grieving in the room. She also has a brother who doesn't do the supportive caretaking that a father or a mother is doing, but the brother is doing the brother's job of taking her mind out of the grief status, which is all what I addressed in the first few videos, that it is necessary that when we are healing from something that leads to grief inside of us, all three are necessary. A supportive person is necessary in life, and you don't necessarily have to have a family life like this. If you have friends also in your life who are responsible for taking your mind outside your grief, who are responsible like a brother or a friend who is supportive and able to provide you nourishing, nurturing food or your favorite food, or if you have a friend who asks you why are you unhappy, then in those people's lives, irrespective of whether you have a family circle or a social circle who does this, you are the lucky privileged ones of the world. But then if you are the privileged one, because your grief will get healed sooner, because if you are eating nurturing food, someone is giving you nurturing food when you are unable to focus on cooking nurturing food, you are being supported for your grief, you are being consoled for your grief, not directly always, but indirectly they are consoling you. And all of these people have actually a capacity to directly also console. And if not these people, if she goes and meets some friends who are going through heartbreak, or if she who have in the past gone through heartbreak, if she finds those friends, or when she shares her experience, if her parents tell her about their heartbreak related stories, then by sharing your grief, that's why they say in so many philosophies or religions that sharing is caring, because when you start sharing your experiences, you realize that some of your experiences are very similar to each other, and that is what actually truly creates a deep meaningful bond with another human being. And when we have created these deep meaningful bond with another human being, or we have developed the capacity to create such bonds, that is when a human soul survives deeply for a long time and is actually leading a very meaningful life. But if you don't have these people who will actually meaningfully take care of your nutritional needs or soul needs when you're grieving, then what is happening? You have to take care of it yourself. And when can you be able to do that self care? You can only do that self care once you have transcended that grief. So a person like the girl in the second video, whose life, oh, the girl from Canada, she doesn't actually have meaningful connections with whom she can grieve. Otherwise, it's not possible for a child to have the kind of depression she's talking about since 11 years of age. She didn't even mention actually possibly in her story what happened in the teenage or teenage years of her life, what she narrated about exploitation for work or being sexually assaulted or being psychologically manipulated, possibly happened in her life in her late teen years, like maybe after 14 or 16 years of age rather than at 11 years of age. I hope so. It is possible that she could have had that cruel experience begin in her life from 11 years of age, but I'm hoping that it didn't. I'm hoping that the first few years of her life she actually hasn't. I'm intuitively feeling that she didn't mention what happened to her from 11 to 15 or 16 years of age, because that is also what many people who are suicidal, many people who are heavily depressed, many people who have had a continuous life circumstance of being exploited, assaulted, or manipulated by others, when this has manifested in their life, if this has manifested in someone's life, first thing she will talk about would be the most easily visibly abusive conditions. So the difficult, more deeper conditions of her life that are leading to her torture, harm, exploitation, driving her towards thinking about suicide, all those deeper elements of her suffering, she can't present first of all in a public platform, because there will be a hesitance to speak about many things related to a personal life in any person's soul. It doesn't matter if you're a tight-lipped person, it doesn't matter if you are a very outspoken person. Every person who has gone through real hard nightmares in their life, real cruelty filled experiences of their life, and even when you are feeling minor level cruelty, like when this girl is going through heartbreak in that first video, that's a minor level cruelty. Someone just simply said no to dating you any further, or all the future dreams of your life related to that life you had envisioned with that person as a partner has gone away. So one is you are feeling unworthy as a soul because someone said no to you, and second is you are also grieving the dreams you had held in your eyes regarding the life you might have had with that other person who has broken up with you. These are the two things that are it's still a minor level grief, because someone saying no is an invariable part of life. Not everyone should say yes to us, because do you want to become a Casanova in the world, or do you want to be a Draupadi like person being desired and coveted by every man, or any man you think you want to marry, that man only should marry? Then because you will end up being a Draupadi like person if the first person you thought should married you, because that is what happened to Draupadi. She wanted Arjun to marry her, Arjun won her and married her. But even though, like, I'm not saying that she consciously wanted Arjun to marry her, but she wanted a warrior to marry her. So she got that warrior, but she also got distributed by that same warrior, the warrior who doesn't have an emotional connection to her. He decided to distribute her to all his siblings when his mother instructed him to do that in Mahabharata. So imagine her plight. She got her wish, and if you look at Draupadi's story also, you will think that Draupadi did have a softer corner for her first husband, the one who she married. But despite her having a softer corner for that husband, or loving him more than possibly her other husbands, it doesn't matter the pain that she is involved in that life as Draupadi is a great pain. Only those women who have been loved that superficially like her, or loved only maybe for her form than her real worth as a human, only those kind of women or men will understand her journey. That's why when someone is going through a heartbreak, they should understand that in comparison to a Draupadi like person, be it a man or a woman who is pushed into being married to 4 5 different people for whatever reasons, that man or a woman who is now divided between so many lovers doesn't get the true love, will not get the true love, because in order to have, if you real goal in life is to have a true deep meaningful love from a spouse and a partner, you have to realize that the spouse and partner with whom you will have a true deep meaningful love is not the one your ego is saying is the right partner for you. It's not going to be the one your social circumstances or association with them as a college friend or a co-worker is causing you to think that they are the right partner for you. A real right partner for you is partner who will be and a spouse who will be balancing you in many ways. They'll be, have the capacity to balance you, they will have the capacity to realign you when you're grieving. They also will have the compassion to not cause you the greatest hurt and pain in your life. They will also try to be your best friend and a mother, father like, or a brother like figure also in your life. They will do all these roles, and they're not just going to be the ones doing it all to you. Then you are a selfish narcissistic personality if you only expect your partner to do all this for you. True balanced aligned partnership, god will only form between two partners when both are capable of doing this to each other. So if your husband or his future partner is going to treat you like a father and ask you what is going wrong in your life, you also have to treat them like a mother and give them nourishing, nurturing food when they are grieving or feeling sad. And vice versa, when you are grieving and feeling sad and are unable to cook, that spouse, if they are a complementary spouse, balancing spouse, they need to understand when you are sick, and they need to provide you with healthy food, nourishing food, nurturing food. They need to caretake you at the same level as you were doing for them. And it doesn't mean that if, and in many relationships what happens is men, they do get the privilege that their mothers, wives, sisters, they're always helping nourish and nurture them by giving them either positive energy or by providing them with good food, clean food, balanced food, healthy food, nourishing food, nurturing food, right? Everyone, mostly traditionally, this is the pattern we have had on earth for thousands of years. Now in this pattern where the woman is always providing so much nourishing food, nurturing food, what is the man's role at that time in order to balance that relationship? If women is putting the loving energy, caring energy in cooking and providing you nurturing food, what is the man's job? Majority, and while the woman has to do that majority of the time, it doesn't mean the woman should be doing that all the time. That is where society always goes wrong and ends up misaligning, or people end up being in either conflict filled, cruelty filled, toxicity filled, or abuse filled, or broken relationships with someone, when the woman is always doing this to their male members of the family. It doesn't matter which male member, or they're doing it to all male, female, children, everyone in their family. They are doing it to them. If they are the only ones pouring their love, giving their love, sharing their resources, sharing their energy, but they are not likewise complimented by their family, people might look at it and think that life is not like a transaction. Yes, life is not like a transaction, that if a woman cooks 100 days in a year, that the man has to next cook the next 100 days in a year. That is a false equality, or that is not a balancing relationship if you are only looking that today I cook, tomorrow you cook. No, because there the equality doesn't lie in that if I cook on Monday, you're cooking on Tuesday. Equality or equitability or fairness or balance in a relationship is, if I have cooked for you 3 weeks in a month, at least for 1 week in a month, can you cook for me when I am sick, when I am down? Which is why women get periods. That is why periods, there is a purpose of periods also in women's life. This is one purpose. This is a higher purpose that only mature men, mature women, mature family members will understand, and only they have the capacity to develop that maturity and understand, either if you are a wise soul, or if you are a soul who have gone through a life journey where no one took care of you when you were sick, or if God is leading you and guiding you to become a mature soul, or if you have had parents or grandparents or other family, or if not parents, grandparents, family, you have seen other good quality men do it to their women. That when 3 weeks in a month, a woman is pouring all the love, care, caretaking, cleaning up the home, giving positive energy, doing so much for the man, at least for 1 week in a month, that man should be able to do that. If not 1 week, the 3 to 4 days that the woman is in her greatest pain. But do we have a current world where men are able to understand this? In the past, when humans were living in joint family, or people were living in tribes, it was not necessary for a man to observe these about their women. At that time, the men were busy. When they were living in a tribal culture, they were busy hunting and gathering and doing other tribal work. So when men were doing that, what was happening? The women were forming the tight-knit community in the tribes, and in each family, if there were people were living in joint family like structures, or because they are living in a tribal system, either if individual families are there in the tribes living in different huts, even then, if one woman is down and sick, the job of all the other women was to pick her up when she is down, when she is sick, when she needs healing, when she needs compassion. So because this is the only two way society can function, when anyone is down. And that is why every religion, and irrespective of religion you follow, if you were only like a Native American or a tribal from India, anywhere you have had a collective group of people coexisting together, the job of the collective is to take care of each other. Now you can do, when you are in a tribal system of 1,000 people living in a tribe in a particular village, and out of those 1,000 people, let's say 200 men are going hunting and gathering. But while the 200 men are going hunting and gathering, then there are maybe another 200 men who are going for doing business purposes, doing a little longer travel to exchange resources with other tribes. So 400 men are maybe not observing what is happening in that 1,000-member tribe, and men and maybe children, because in a 1,000-member tribe there will be maybe 300 men, 300 women, 400 children. Of that, the 400 who are going, they are the older children who are going and training also with some of these men for their jobs. So while those segment of society of the older teens and the older men, about 400 of them are gone, what is the job of the rest 600? In the rest 600, there might be 300 who are just younger kids who need to be taken care of. And then there will be older women who are supposed to take care of the younger kids. But is it only the job of the older 300 women to take care of all the younger 300 kids? Or is it actually the time where people have to discern when someone is sick, when someone is ill, how to take care of each other? So if in a family there is a woman living with 4 children and she is sick, at that time the job of the children is not to take care of the women completely, but to, if you have neighbors and you have good neighbors, you are supposed to enroll the help of your neighbors to take care of the sick women. Or if you're living in a tribe and living in a hut where you have uncles, aunts and grandparents, then your job is to not completely depend on your parent. When your parent is sick, go and spend time with your grandparent, go and spend time with your uncles and aunts. And if there are 4 children, one child can go and spend time with an aunt, one can go spend time with an uncle, one can go and spend time with a grandparent, and one can also talk two. One will be the talker, who's supposed to talk about the problem that my mother is sick, can you do something to heal her? So that one of the four adults who are still remaining in that household, one of them will now go and try to figure out what is wrong with her health, why is her health deteriorating, is there something they can do to make her health better, is there something they need to do to allow her to rest. All these compassionate acts you're supposed to do. And if you're living as a tribe, if no parents are there, but or no uncles and aunts are there, and parents are one parent is gone for business, another parent is sick, then your job is to ask, enroll help from your neighboring uncle and aunts, right? That is why the tribal structure is there. Sometimes also in a tribe, all the 400 people who are going out for hunting, gathering, and going out for business activities, they're not going to go out for long. The business activity people might be going for 10 days, 1 month, long periods of time. Whereas those who are going for hunting and gathering, they're just going in the daytime and coming back in the night. So for those people who are coming back in the night time, again their job is to observe the status of the women and children in their homes. Their job doesn't simply end that they went outside, did some work and came back. At the time, while the woman was taking care of everyone, when the husbands are not there, or when the fathers are not there, when the older children are also not there, at that time, while the woman is taking care of say 10-12 hours of the day of the child's life, the man still has to at least invest 1-2 hours in the child's upbringing. And if the man doesn't do that, that is when a man is failing to do their job as a parent. And yes, in that 1-2 hours also, you can get involved more in a child's when will the man get involved more in a child's life? They will get involved more in a child's life when they are mentoring someone, and they don't need to simply mentor their own children. They are supposed to mentor everyone in the tribe. If you are especially the head of the tribe, you are supposed to mentor everyone. If you are not at the head of the tribe, you are at the base of the tribe. At that time also, there will be at least 3-4 children you are supposed to mentor, because that is how a human connection works in real world. And I am going to post a video about the human cell death cycle, where it shows how a cell slowly when it's dying, it's fracturing all the contacts with all the nearby cells as it's dying, and it's slowly shrinking away. But while it's fracturing the contacts, we don't know whether the cell is fracturing the contact or the neighboring cell is fracturing the contact there, or it could be both that is happening simultaneously, leading to the cell to shrink down. But while the cell is dying and its connections are getting constricted and cut off, there were 7-8 connections that were around the cell, and so there were 7-8 nearby cells that was present near this cell, that was connected to this cell, that was also responsible for communicating with the cell, nurturing the cell, nourishing the cell, and the cell was doing its individual function of nurturing, nourishing, communicating. How does a cell communicate? Let's say we have a cell on the skin. Now the skin cells, how will my skin cells communicate with other skin cells? If one of the skin cells gets a pin prick, am I able to get that nerve, the response of hurt that skin feels? Do I feel only the pin prick in that 1.11 millimeter area where the pin pricked my skin? No, that sensation of pain travels to all the nearby cells as well. So there will be a area of 5, 6, 10 cells or 20 cells where the pain will be felt the most. And that sensation of pain is actually also getting transmitted by the nervous system into our brains. So our brain is the one who is detecting the signaling system that there is pain. And why does the signaling system have to travel from my skin to my brain? Because then brain will send, the brain being the head, kind of like the head of our body, the brain has to now send signals to other organ systems of our body to send the necessary damage control mechanism. Because if I got pricked, if it is a superficial prick, it might have only scratched my skin, but if it is a deep wound, I might even be bleeding. So if I'm bleeding, brain also has to send the information system to my blood, so that the blood clotting factors will go to the wound and close the wound. If there is no bleeding, even if there is an open wound, again my brain has to transmit the right knowledge to the rest of the skin in the body in order to allow the rest of the skin in my body to heal and close the wound eventually. But if it doesn't happen, that means there is some biochemical process and information exchange process that is missing in my body. If the bleeding doesn't get stopped, that is missing, or that is not working in the right way, or a disease is happening, all of which will sometimes cause a wound to not close, will sometimes cause a wound to not heal, will sometimes cause a blood flow to not stop. All these things will happen. So like how in a cell there is a particular set of function, and in our whole body the head of the body is doing the majority function, so the head has always got to know what is happening to the rest of the body. That is when a functional body happens. Same way in a tribe, the head of the tribe always should know, be getting the information of who is the weakest member of their society in that small tribe, or who is the one needing help, because the head has to provide the right resources. The job of the head is to do that, and of course the head delegates other people to do this activity. That's why we have in a tribe also, there will be the chieftain, then there will be the medicine person, there will be the healer, there will be the tribal women who are the empathetic women caretaking children or other activities. So there's, everyone has their own individual specific role. So the clotting factor is the role of our blood related system. Our circulatory system's function is related to clotting factors, but circulatory system is also involved with the hormonal system and other systems, the biochemical processes happening in the body. So if the body doesn't get the right nutrition, right food, even if the circulatory system wants to do its function of clotting and stopping the bleeding happening, or if our skin's repair system has to do the function of that open wound that has been created, to heal that open wound, that healing can't happen if I am not getting the right nutrition. So while the circulatory system is doing its job, brain has also got to send the signaling system to my body that if I am nutritionally challenged, that I should eat that nutritional food that will aid in my healing. So if I need clotting factor related food, my body should send me a signaling system that, and these things are actually happening intuitively in our body. Most of us don't understand this, but sometimes, you know, when you will get, like during periods, women get craving for chocolates. Why do they get craving for chocolates? Because chocolates have some happy hormone related benefits in them. So if you eat chocolate, there is some happy hormones that are released, and when you are in pain, you need a little bit of happiness. But chocolates, some chocolates, and I don't know about other women, but I crave chocolates with certain ingredients in them. So I crave chocolates with nuts. Why do I crave chocolates with nuts? Because nuts might have those minerals and proteins and other things that my body needs to feel stronger. That's why I crave chocolates of a particular kind. Someone might crave chocolate with a certain flavor. Why would you crave chocolate with a certain flavor? Like someone who is bleeding profusely, they might also need, some people like salty chocolates, or some people like salty snacks when they have periods. Again, because you are nutritionally getting deprived when the blood is bleeding out of your body. Is it only the blood that is going out, or the broken cells that are going out when you are having a period? No, apart from the blood and the broken cells that are going out of your body when you are having a period, some healthy nutrients also might be leaving your body if you are nutritionally challenged. So at that time, if you are nutritionally deprived or nutritionally challenged, it could be because you're not having good nutritious food rest of the month. It could be because whoever is your caretaker, like your husband, is supposed to provide, while the wife is supposed to cook the nutritious food, provide the nutritious food, even maybe she's involved in buying of the nutritious food. The husband's job is to actually bring that nutritious food, give the money for the nutrition. If it is a tribal system, and the tribal system, the hunter and gatherer has to not simply get whatever food they get, but if you're a good hunter and gatherer, if you're a good member, responsible person of the tribe, the most responsible people or good balanced people will not simply think of I am supposed to go and get some berries, but they will get the right berries, healthy berries. Only time they may not be able to get the good berries are when they are unhealthy or when they are falling sick. Otherwise, if they are in their healthiest status and fittest status, they are supposed to bring the fittest quality food for their family. Especially if you are socioeconomically, if in a tribe everyone has socioeconomically similar status, maybe just the head or a few top 10-20 people have a little higher class status. But most of the time in a tribe, everyone else has similar status. And that similar status is because everyone else, in God's eyes, everyone is actually created equal. Everyone has the equal advantage, but that equal advantage becomes unequal when people fail to do their individual specific roles as individual specific members of a particular society or culture. So if you are a man who is falling sick, you have to ask help from the women or ask help from other tribe members, and you have to first acknowledge that I am falling sick. Like, say for 10 years you were the best hunter, but now your eyes are getting for some reason you're not able to hunt that well. What is your job? Your job is not to go and steal someone else's eyes, which is what in the modern world men start doing when it becomes a dog eat dog kind of a world, that what I don't have I'm going to get from you. But that is not the true essence of a human being. True essence of a human being is, if I'm not able to see, I need to seek help from people. I need to become the vulnerable one. You may have been the strong one for the first 10 years as an adult, but if you have been given a weakness, you have to understand the purpose and role of that weakness. You may have to be a weak one for the next 5 years of your life, where you are not able to function that well. At that time you are supposed to maybe, and why is that weakness happening? Maybe that weakness is happening to you so that you can train the next generation. What if God knows in your future your life is only going to be a 40-year-old life or a 50-year-old life? Maybe only up to 40-50 years you are going to lead life. So God knows that. And maybe as a 30-year-old, 35-year-old, you have started losing your eyesight. You don't know why you're losing your eyesight. But if you lean in and ask help, both from your wife as well as from other tribe members, the wife has to help a little bit more now in the house. The other, or I have to think about what can she do to, which medicine should she give you, which food should she give you to heal you. That is the wife's role. The other team members who are going hunting with you, their role now is, if you are not able to hunt the best quality food now because of your losing eyesight or whatever problems, earlier maybe if you were getting 10 kgs of good quality food, now you're only able to procure 5, but your family does need 10 kg of food, then the others, you have to lean in into others, ask them for help, and their karma, their role is to provide you that. Like how in a cell, when the cell is the healthiest, and a cell, this cell in the image that is dying won't die if the other surrounding cells understand it needs help and provides it extra nutrition, extra food. If the cell is dying because of lack of nutrition, lack of food, if there is injury, then again, if the other neighboring cells do their job of repairing that injury, that cell will not die. But for that also to happen, the cell also has to acknowledge I am dying, I need help, and the other cells have to acknowledge this cell is dying, this cell is part of our body structure, I need to save this cell. But if both fails to happen, if the cell also doesn't ask for help, the neighboring cells also don't provide the nutrition, food, repair that is needed, this cell will die. But along with that cell dying, if now in our body, in most of our body's tissue system, blood system, circulatory system, there is a repeating cycle of replenishment, that when certain cells die, new cells are also being birthed at that time. So a repeating cycle of birth and death has to unfold in a cell when one cell has died in a healthy body. But if that repeating cycle of birth and death and balanced cycle of birth and death, if that is not maintained, what will happen is that cell that has died will leave a gap and nothing will fulfill that cell's role, and then that is a harmful body. Then it will become a lesion filled body, or a body with harm, or a body that is going towards death, decay, or something much more worse is going on in that person's body. Like that in a society also, if a society, if a man asks for help from 10 friends, and you ask for help from 10 friends knowing that not all 10 will help you, but out of the 10, and that is how the central cell, which is surrounded by 7-8 cells, its information is not just transmitted to the 7-8 cells just around it, its information is also transferred from the 7-8 cells to further cells downstream. So at least 100 cells get the information that this cell is dying. But that 100 cells that are getting information, some cells' job is, the nervous system cells' job is to provide the information to the brain. But the rest of the neighboring cells' job is to gather and pool their resources to help this cell that is dying. But at that time, if the right help doesn't happen, because some cell is deciding, I'm not going to communicate, because that is what stonewalling or humans who don't help end up doing. They will not help when help is required, they will not help when help is asked. If help is asked, like people know that this cell needs 1 ml of xyz nutrient, and that 1 ml 10 cells are going to provide in 0.1 ml dosing, and that pooled together, like everyone has some extra resource, everyone will give extra resource to help in that 1 ml nutrient that that central cell needs. But if everyone needs to give 0.1 and 10 cells have to be brain has directed that 10 cells provide this nutrition to the cell, but if none of them provide it, or if 2-3 of them fail to provide it, can that cell recover? That cell will only recover if it had some additional resources to continue recovering with minimal resources. So if it needed 1 ml of some nutrient and only 0.7 ml arrived to it, it may still recover if it had some reserve energy. But if it is completely exhausted, there is no reserve energy left, even 0.1 missing will cause the death cycle to unfold. So all these things intuitively a cell is doing constantly, our body is functioning like that. But while this is happening at a subconscious level in all of our bodies, most of us, unless you're doing a meditation or unless you're doing any kind of work where you are mindfully attuned to your body's functions and needs, most people do not focus on these subconsciously continuous activities going on in our body. But that doesn't mean that this activity is not going on. It is constantly going on in different aspects. I just use skin as an example because skin is the easiest example to observe. But likewise, each and every organ system like that is functioning in our body in a very similar fashion. And every human being on earth is also like that. There will be some human beings who are like the skin of the earth. There are some human beings who are like the brains of the earth. There are some human beings who are like the heart of the earth. So those with heart-centered life will focus on more heart-centered activities. Those with intellectual capacity will be focusing on all the intellectual activities that need to be done on earth. Those who are the hands and foot of the earth, some people have to carry the load. Shoulders of the earth, they are to carry a lot of burden. But which person has to carry? Like say you're meant to be the shoulder of you're meant to be the person who shoulders a lot of responsibility. But if you shirk your responsibility, then can you be the person who should shoulder those responsibilities? No. Then you are possibly some other function is your role that you have to take. But people have to understand also that if I am the back and I'm not the shoulder of my body, back doesn't get to carry a heavy load, because if you put a heavy load on the back, your back will break, whereas shoulder has much higher capacity to carry a load. So you will see those people who are the farmers, who are the people who do a lot of heavy lifting activities, many of them will be carrying things in their shoulders instead of on their back. If you carry it in your back, you will cause harm. When we are even carrying a bag, you will see a parcel is very easily carried when I put it across my body, across the shoulder, than only put it on one shoulder. So because putting a load across your body is more balancing for your body, because this shoulder is carrying the main load, but while you put it across your body, this area of your body is also partly carrying the load. Whereas if you only put a heavy bag on one shoulder, only this side is carrying the heavy load, and you will end up burdening yourself. So all these acts of balancing that a human is doing at an individual scale, and intuitively you start doing it, more you practice a job role, that is how a human is also supposed to function. You have to have the self-awareness to know what is safer for your health, what is better for your health, not simply at the individual cell specific level, but at the grand human level. So like that, every human, we are part of Mother Earth. So we are a huge body of millions and billions of humans who are part of the whole earth, doing different roles in different parts of earth for a particular purpose. And if we don't realize that particular purpose, we are doing a particular role, we are just unconsciously doing a lot of things, then we can't become consciously a part of higher purpose of earth. But if you want to become a conscious part of higher purpose of existence on earth, we have to do those conscious choices. We can't simply, when someone is seeking us help, we can't simply say no. Like you have the, say, the brain said to the cells near this dying cell, give it 0.1 ml of the nutrient that it needs. Say you don't have that, and you don't have the time to tell to the brain that I don't have 0.1 ml, maybe you have 0.001. But again, you are surrounded by another 10 cells or 8 cells, so you can transmit the information that I need extra resources, so that the remaining that you don't have will come from the additional cells around you. So like that you gather resources, like that you draw the resources. When you don't have the resources, you have to ask for help, which is the story of that man who is turning blind. He has to ask help. If he asks help from 10 people, maybe 10 won't help him, but at least 2 might help him, and 2 might not help him in the way he is asking help. Maybe he wants everyone to contribute 0.1 extra of giving grains to him that he used to usually have for his family in a month. But that grain, now that he is not getting from everyone, he wants that extra grains from others. But people don't want to enable laziness or enable someone constantly asking and seeking help. So if you don't want to do that, out of the 10 people who he sought help from, 2 might have given him the grains that he needed. The other 3 or other 7 might have given him advice instead. But if they have given him advice, that advice also he has to valuably now understand and process. And of that, if that advice, some people might not even help. There are some antisocial personalities who will give you misdirection also. So because maybe the reason why this man has to learn all these things, like out of the maybe 10 friends he asked help, 3 outrightly just refused help. They don't have enough resources to do anything, and they are the kind who don't like exchanging anything. Now those 3 are going to have a karma associated with that. Let's say another 3 did give him help. Now the remaining 6 who didn't give help, 2 are antisocial personalities, so they will give false help and false advice, and 4 will give true meaningful advice. So you have to discern first of all those 3 who didn't help. You can't sit and think, why did my friend not help? Because then you are adding to your negative karma. Because when you are in trouble, you can't focus on what another person is doing or not doing or didn't do. They didn't do it. Stop the thinking about that. Right now you need help. That is what is more important than thinking and focusing on why they didn't provide me help. That part, that self-reflection you can do later on in life. So you can't prioritize and get stuck in thinking why he's not helping me. If you get stuck in thinking why he's not helping me, you can't do the rest of the role you are meant to do when you are facing a challenge. Then the three who did help, you have gratitude for the three who helped. Now you know who is the one who will help you when you are in a bind, at least in initial stages of when you are in a bind. Those three you can trust at least to help you in the initial stages, but you can't again completely think that you can continuously keep exploiting them for help, because you have to also understand they might have been strapped also, but seeing your emergent need, they gave you something. Out of the three, one might have been really strapped, one might be partially strapped, and one might be really super rich, so he will continue giving. The one who is super rich can continue giving, but the one who is partially strapped or completely strapped of their own resources, they are not seeking help. That also discernment you need to develop eventually. But again, that part of developing discernment on why someone who helped you initially is not able to help you later on, that discernment also maybe you can cultivate a little few years down the line. But the discernment that you have to immediately cultivate at the point of time when you need help and people didn't help or gave you poor advice is to understand that the poor advice person is not your friend, and to discern that if 4 people 6 people are giving you advice, if you know someone gave you poor advice, obviously that advice will either fail, or you will yourself, your intuition by then, being a hunter for 10 years, you should know, or a gatherer for 10 years, you should have known that, you know, if this person is giving me this advice, you have to, your time is like, out of the 3 who are just antisocial or 2 who are just antisocial, one might give you a very obvious wrong misdirection, which, having been an expert hunter and gatherer, you should know that's a wrong advice. Like they will say, go to this area of the forest, it's easier to get animals there as a hunter. But in your 10 years experience, you already know you don't get animals there. So should you trust their advice, or should you just let go that this person is misdirecting me? You have to understand that, right? Because that's why you've become blind. You become blind because your intuition has to come into play. Some other factors have to come into play in your life. That's why you have a disadvantage, so that other senses can take its prominence at that time. And one of the senses that has to take prominence is being vulnerable and staying vulnerable in the right balanced manner. At that time, you can't again hold a grudge that this friend is misdirecting me and blah blah blah. And again, you can't, if you're in trouble, you can't focus on stupid frivolous things. Then the second thing, the person who one gave a obvious misdirection which you also knew about based on your work you've been doing for so many years. Another one may have given you a 50-50 place where advice where you are not sure, this doesn't sound like the right thing, but if I trust him, should I trust this knowledge and test it? When should you test it? When it's a 50-50 zone. Should you test it when you are in the time of dire need, or again should you wait to test it at the time of your emergency? You should wait. So all these things, the blindness has happened so that you gather some wisdom also inside yourself. You grow and evolve in life as a wise person, that in 35 years of age you got this blindness, so that you get some maturity inside of yourself. You evolve from your life experience to know which of these experiences that are unfolding for you should be reprioritized and in a way that is the right way to use your thinking. Because so far, maybe being a hunter and gatherer, you have used your muscular strength a lot, you have used some intuitive skills to hunt and gather food from someone and procure food from someone. But now it is not simply about the logical thinking, but intuitive thinking, heart-based thinking, understanding in the heart-based thinking that vulnerability plays a major role even becoming towards becoming a heart-centered person. And then the 4 who gave you advice, the true advice, which don't seem iffy to you, which seem like genuine advice. Now in those 4 also, you have to test out the one which is most easily testable, like for you. Like if one says sell some of your property, if you have the capacity to sell your property, you should sell it. If one says sell your property, but at that time there is some barrier to you selling that property, you can't sell the property to gain more money. If someone says why don't you start growing your own food in instead of going on business trips for food, start growing your own food, you can start doing that. Someone might say, why don't you take a assistant to help you? Now, which of these is the best advice? I think the assistant might be the best advice. Growing your own food might be the best advice. Delegating someone slowly some of your job roles might be a good advice as well. Like someone who was already working with you, like say two people were going on a team for business trips, or two people were going and doing these hunting and gathering. They are meant to now, whereas this person, the 35-year-old, was the main person doing all the major hunting and gathering activities. Now the assistant who was coming with him all on all his trips, like say the skilled hunter was doing like 80% of the hunting, the less skilled hunter, who's maybe a 20-year-old or a teenager, was doing like 20% of the hunting. Now slowly he has to shoulder more responsibilities. So is that a good advice? Because these are all sustainability related advice that long term will be beneficial for him. That now if he trains this person, if he was only doing 20%, now he has to be pushed to do maybe 40% work. It will be a little harder for him to do the 40% work. But slowly he can build up from 20%, he can start doing 30. And that is the time when he was getting the resources from some of his friends. So when he got some resources from his friends who donated food to him, that time is the time when the trainee under you is to do extra work. He is now building up the extra work, while for 2 months or 1 month your friends gave you some food. In that 1-2 months, the trainee is slowly building from 30% to 20% work to 30%, 30% to 40%, maybe even 50%. Now if you get really skilled trainees under you, some people get jealous, egotistical, start worrying this person will take over my job. But why should you worry? Maybe he is meant to take over your job, but there's a higher purpose. He's not meant to take over your job when you are alive. He's only meant to take over from you after you die. And God knows when you're dying. Like say you are 35, God knows you're going to die at 50 years of age. This person whom you're training, God also knows maybe this person is supposed to become your daughter's husband. So God is, because as a father of children, like if you have 3 children and this trainee is your friend's son who was training under you, or some orphan in the tribe who didn't have any parents, that's why he was training under you. Now you are training that orphan to do some job, and you're building him, and you're seeing that he's very skilled now and he's able to do a lot of activities. You can get scared, but if you get scared, you are self-sabotaging as yourself, especially if you, after getting scared, decide to cut off all contact with a person who is superseding you, and instead of making them your collaborative helper, you ended up alienating them, when instead they could have helped you. Not just helped you, as a consequence of them continuously helping you, you could have seen their good side. Like if you hadn't got the negative things related to envy, jealousy, insecurity overtake you, you would have seen this person is the greatest, the right person for my daughter. And at that time you will not see, maybe like from 30 to 35, 35 to 40, you are supposed to work through your journey, and it's okay, it's normal to feel a little insecure. But when you feel insecure and you bring in God into your life, God energy, God based thoughts into your life, and you work on your insecurity, because it's normal for anyone to feel insecure that someone is taking over my place. But if you understand that they're not taking over your place, they are becoming your helper in life, you will go a long way. Maybe this father is not supposed to die at 50, maybe he's supposed to die at 80, but even then there is maybe a higher purpose, that maybe if he has a daughter, he's supposed to marry his daughter. If he doesn't have a daughter, maybe he has a niece who needs a husband, and that niece is maybe right now only 15 years old. That's why you're not thinking that niece is going to get married. But this guy who is a 20-year-old who is training under you, if he trains under you for 10 years, as a 30-year-old, when he is 30 and the niece is 25, at that time maybe after 10 years of training under you and 10 years of doing good sincere work, will you trust him enough to know this is a good worker and I would like my niece to be married to this person then? Right? Maybe that was all the role you needed to do, and your blindness maybe would have lasted only for 4-5 years, because that's all the lesson you were needed to learn. You were just future training for someone to marry someone in your family, and to make, he might become your competitor, but it's not necessary that he will be a competitor for you in the tribe where you live. Maybe he is going to move, maybe he's a hunter gatherer and he has got other qualities. After marrying the niece, it's possible that they will set up a tribe in some other village. That is also possible in their future. Or if they live in your village, why are you thinking they are your competitor and not realizing that they are your future generation? Maybe you don't have any children, your brother had some children who needed to be married off. You gave a suggestion, your brother, and these people got married because of your suggestion. If they have a happy married life as a result of your suggestion, maybe they are meant to be your crutch in your old age. So even if you live 100 years, 80 years long life, in the last few years of your life, when you would not simply lose your eyes, you will start losing all your other physical abilities too. At that time, in that moment of vulnerability, these two would take care of you and your wife. So you have to think of your future also in that way. No one is saying that you should calculatingly, planningly do it, but these should happen naturally for you, slowly, and the purpose of it will unfold naturally for you. Those who calculatingly do these things, now they are actually also misaligned with God. When you do it in a calculating way, when you do it in a natural, organic way, that I had a vulnerability, I fell with grace, and when I fell with grace, whoever came to help me, I understood the value of why they are helping me, why they are not helping me. And also and all these lessons related to why someone is not helping you, or was only partially able to help you, or gave you instead advice, all of the value of those who helped with direct things, or who helped with advice, and those who realized your problems and helped you in a material way, they are all equally important in some aspects. And then those who helped you in a material way, if you don't be grateful to those who are helping you in a material way, who are helping you in a way where they're training under you, as I said, you will self-sabotage otherwise. And this person who could have become a member of your family, who could have become your potential old ages person taking care of you, because you took care of them when they were young. So there's a karma playing there, right? If you took care of them, trained them for 10-20 years of their life, they will also take care of you in the 10-20 years of your life when you need taking care of, right? Usually that is how karma will work. Whether they will do it or not do it is a different thing about karma. But even if they didn't do it, say you had done a good act, this is also how God plays a role. Like, say you did a good act and you were a soul who did everything in the right way, and for 10 years you didn't hold jealousy, you didn't hold insecurity, you trained someone with good faith, not because you're thinking that they will marry my niece or my daughter, or they'll take care of me in my old age. You simply help someone because you needed someone to work with you, and also because they were a good worker, and also because you didn't have any jealousy or insecurity if they are overpassing and surpassing you in your skills. That's why you did all the right things, balanced things, aligned things for you. And let's say you didn't have a daughter, you didn't have anyone in your family who this person married. Even if you had marriageable age people, this person didn't marry them. That's fine, that's their karma or whatever. Eventually though, let's say they didn't even marry into your family, but if they are still continuing living in the tribe and they became a prominent member of a tribe because of the skills they learned from you, eventually again in the future, you don't know how the benefit you gave to this person who became a very skilled worker will come to you. It is possible that that person didn't realize their direct karma of helping you, but indirectly they might help you, that they became a prominent businessman, and then whoever was working under them, one person like that ended up marrying your daughter, or someone who was working under them ended up being your helper in your old age, or someone who was just collaborating with them and learned some good skills from them and know that you were the original teacher of those skills. They have the indirect gratitude for you, and that's why they might come and help you. So you never know how your good karma will come and help you in your future, because the Karma means you just do what you should do given the circumstances you are in. After that, how the choices you made will bear fruits for you in your future will not depend on I did this for you and you have to do this for me. It will depend on multiple other things, and based on everyone else's karma, it will depend on that. If that person realizes that he got 10-20 years of good training from you and is grateful to you and wants to do directly something for you, he can do it. But if he doesn't realize it, that is again his karma and his karmic choices, which will eventually unfold in his life also in that way. Because if you don't have gratitude for your teacher or someone who supported you when you needed support, at that time, if you don't hold that gratitude and didn't manifest the gratitude in the right way, because people can say I'm grateful to this teacher, but saying is very different from actually being grateful for someone's presence in your life. It's a very two different elements of living, and the proof of your gratitude comes in how you ended up actually showing the gratitude you feel for someone. And if in this life you couldn't do it, God events the balances maybe in a next life, but that is up to God, that you can't do anything about, and up to that soul who didn't show the appropriate gratitude. You can't do anything, you have to let go of that as well. But say this man now was like a man who was not getting any help, which is what happened to that girl. That girl was having some problems in her family life, and this is now modern society. This is not society of 1,000 years back where only trade and hunting was happening, or very that kind of less complex human activities were happening. In our modern society, much more complex human activities are happening, and much more complex level of abuse and life circumstance problems are happening and manifesting in people's lives. So for her, what she said, the second girl, when she is telling her story about the abuse she has faced and the societal thought she is facing, the teacher who came, like the therapist, both these therapists actually were partly clueless about the depth of her problems in her life. And the reason why they are partly clueless is both these people, therapists who talked to her, have had a much more privileged life. This guy who is the main whose show I was watching and we were watching in that video, his shows, if you will see, he talks about all his friends and wife and mentors who have been there in his life, who have helped him shape his life. But unfortunately, this girl is very unlike him. She has no mentors or no people shaping her life in the right way. She has had mostly very negative influences in her life. So her life is a very direct contrast to the life this guy has led. So he has, that's why, very less context, that sometimes some people are not lucky to have good mentors. Some people may not have had good family to support them. They may not have had any family to give them food also when they need food. They might not have any family to give them shelter when they needed shelter. Not just family, they don't even have good friends who have provided them food or shelter or clothing when they were in need. And when they trusted some men into providing that to them, or believed that they were just their good friend and that's why they were offering them help, it turned out that they were betrayed by all the people they trusted. Because trust is a natural human life trait. So you should trust, and trust is how exactly like the central cell that is dying has got trust that all its neighboring cells will provide him the nutrition and right information for it to survive. That is its trust. But the moment that trust gets broken for whatever reason, sometimes it could be outside chemical factors are there which are breaking its connection to the other neighboring cells, and that's why that central cell is dying. Sometimes it could be a microbe that is eating away the connections, and that's why that cell is dying. Sometimes it could also be that the neighboring cells are not in a healthy state. That's why also the connection is dying. Whatever it is, that central cell's trust may be broken sometimes. The day it's broken and broken enough that it can't be repaired, that's when the cell will die. But if it's all conditions necessary for it to survive, and the trust it has that the neighboring cells will provide it the resource that it needs for it to heal, if that arrives to it while the cell was shown to completely shrink slowly, there's also a possibility that if the right nutrients, right help, right repair for the chemical damage, right repair for the antimicrobial attack, if all of that happen, slowly that cell can start healing also. So instead of all 7-8 connections fracturing away slowly as the video showed, it is possible that while 3 connections severed away, the rest replenished it, and then that cell wouldn't have died. Same way with the human. If the human's time for death has happened, slowly all the connections will fracture away for that human, and that human will die, or the connections that were needed for it to be built, they didn't provide the resources at the right time for the human to survive, which is what is happening to this girl. She doesn't have the right resources for her to survive. She has some reserve resources that she has been surviving on based on whatever job she's able to do. She has some money, so she's able to eat some food maybe, but maybe she doesn't have a home, and she's always looking for a suicide point. Why? Because maybe one time that assault incidents that she narrated seems like if she had been homeless or nearing homelessness, and she trusted some friend to go and live in their homes, and that friend was all the while just thinking about using her for, like, he's providing her a home, so she should provide him with sex. If he was that kind of a man and he assaulted her, that's why. So her trust was broken, right? And the man might have thought that I'm giving her home, so she should give me sex. But why? If you were truly a human being just doing a job as a human being, you could have freely given her home, or only asked her to pay rent later on in life when she has the money to pay you rent. That is what a human being who is truly a humane person would do. A humane person would not simply just see a destitute girl and give her a home and then assault her. So because her trust has been broken like that, so when she doesn't have money for a home, that's why looking like, I don't want to be raped again, I don't want to be assaulted again, I would rather die than get raped and assaulted. So the second therapist also, who is saying, oh, I have seen so many people, if you commit suicide, your families will be distraught and heartbroken. Again, that's a very irrelevant comment for this girl, because if she really had family who would be distraught and heartbroken when she is dying or in danger, do you think she would have even had these 3 set of experiences that she narrated in the video? None of these experiences would have manifested for her if really there were family around in her immediate life, or a group of friends in her immediate life who would truly care if she died, if she did some self-harm. She actually doesn't have those meaningful connections. That's why she's in this death loop with all these abusers constantly manifesting in her life. Of course, in such a circumstance, if she really wants to get away from the abuse, she is actually the most vulnerable of society in that area. But in order to understand that she's the most vulnerable and she needs help in 10 different ways, she might need monetary help, getting a job and a stable home life. She might need not just a stable home to just be as a physical address, because when you are homeless or near homelessness, or you're living paycheck to paycheck, many of these people, when they don't have a home, they can't even apply for a higher quality job, even if they might be qualified for those jobs, because there's no mailing address for them. So she needs a mailing address. Even if she doesn't have a mailing address, she might need a cell phone. Here, that phone that she is using, we don't even know, she might have been calling from a work phone. She might not even have a cell phone. So if she loses one of her jobs, she will also not have any phones to again use for any other job application purposes. So these are all the real true problems of people who are facing homelessness, who don't have too many family who care for them, who don't have any family who care for them, who may not have any real deep meaningful friendships also who care for them. They need multi-level help and step-by-step help only, and telling to them that if you die your family will grieve for you is meaningless, because they really don't have those family. It is possible that maybe she is an orphan, and even though she is an orphan, maybe her parents died, it is possible she may have grandparents existing somewhere in the world and she doesn't know about those grandparents. But even if she has those grandparents and the grandparents also don't know about her, maybe that's a possibility. So So it is possible that when you are saying that there could be family who might care for you might be the truth, but it is also equally possible that even if those family grandparents find out about her, or some cousins of her parents find out about her, they may not have socioeconomic status, or they may not have the emotional or mental care necessary in them to actually take care of her. They might only be okay at superficially talking with her once in a while, but other than that, they don't really deeply, she doesn't have that deep meaningful connection in her life, which is why she has to first find that deep meaningful connection. Also, in order for her to find those deep meaningful connection, very few people are going to marry a girl who is from the streets. Very few people do that. Very few people are ready to marry a girl who will be not just marry, because someone might be ready to marry you, but just someone wanting to marry you doesn't equate to them having deep meaningful loving connection towards you. People can marry another person out of greed. People can marry out of another person out of just sexual lust. People can marry because they are whatever their reasons for marrying. But whatever is their reason for marrying, once they have married, like maybe they are gay and they just need a front for a girl to be their wife, that could also be a reason. There could be multiple reasons for someone marrying someone, but that just marriage doesn't equate to having a meaningful soulful connection with someone and deep meaningful connection with someone. Which again brings me back to the question of that first girl with lesser level of misery than this girl. But in both these girls' life lesson, the truth is deep meaningful connection has to exist for them. And while this girl who was heartbroken over a breakup with a boyfriend is and it's a hypothetical story, but that's a real story of some other girls who have experienced these breakups in their life. But again, in that, people need to realize what is more important. Is it important for you to just have whatever meaningless this boyfriend for a while superficially seemed like a match for you, or you seemed like a match for him, but when he realized that that superficial match that was there, maybe some attraction was there, some chemistry was there, some intellectual compatibility was there, all of which, while it's good for forming some connection with another human being, is not necessarily the right connection to have a long life with someone. So in order to have a long, deep, meaningful life with someone, we need to have that deeper level connection with them, true connection with them, depth of connection has to develop with them, which was not forming with this boyfriend, and that's why the relationship broke off. So if you understand the value of that this is not a deeper connection, and she has context, this girl, the first girl, has the context of who are the potential deeper connection possible for her. It's in the form of the mother who's nurturing her, mother of the father who's asking her deeper questions, the brother who is teasing her when she is too much occupied in her misery. All these three are the right guides for her into what is a true, deep, meaningful connection. And with a right kind of a balancing partner, all these three elements will be present in some aspect with that partner, and you will be also like that for that partner, because you can't also be a selfish person. Like when we watch all these romantic movies and stories, many women start aspiring towards having a partner who will take care of them, who will do XYZ things for them. But a woman also has to not just do what the romantic movies are showing, that this is what their partner will do for them, but she also has to do certain things. In many romantic movies, I have very rarely are romantic movies showing the women doing some things that are also balancing and aligning and deeper level influencing the man. Those kind of movies haven't even been made. But a true partnership is where a man simply doesn't do many things for the woman, but a woman is also bringing many things into the man's life. So that man, the hypothetical man of a tribe who was getting blind, at the time, should he enlist only help from his partners and friends and co-workers, or also from his wife and children? Now the wife and children also have to realign with his blindness a little bit. Maybe their life purpose is to, one of the child, maybe their purpose is to become a a future medicine person, so that child has to experience your vulnerability too. So you can't hide your poor eyesight from your child, because the child's future purpose will then get ruined. Or your wife is supposed to start working and collaborating with medicine women of your area for some reason, maybe like, instead of you doing all the hunting and gathering, you do it for 7 hours, 2 hours you, or 3 hours you cause your assistant to do the rest, and maybe for a 1 hour your wife is supposed to do that. And at that time, while your wife is doing the gathering maybe of herbs in the neighboring areas for medicinal purposes, maybe you were doing the hunting part really well, but the gathering part you were not expert at doing. So maybe that aspect your wife has to take over, because maybe she will be a very careful gatherer to know which herb is a healthy herb to take, which herb is not a healthy herb to gather. And you got a poor eyesight because of this, that you were gathering poor quality food, and the poor quality fruits and nuts and herbs and vegetables that you were gathering was causing your blindness. Because now your wife has got enrolled in the job, or your assistant has got enrolled, and maybe they are more careful about understanding this element, their introduction into your workplace now helps you indirectly eventually in the future in healing quickly. Because the more graceful you are, the more allowing you are for a different paradigm, which is a little bit different from your comfort zone, but if you allow that different paradigm to unfold, all the benefits of that different paradigm will unfold. On the other hand, if instead of this man there was another man who doesn't ask his friends for help, who doesn't go to his friends for help, or who asks some friends and then decides they didn't help me, I'm not going to ask the rest of my friends. Or you've asked all your friends, none of them, they gave you advice, you're just not registering the advice they're giving you. And then you are not even vulnerable with your wife, vulnerable with your kids, and you're sitting and suffering and festering. Is your health going to go worse and worse and worse, or is it going to get better when after asking help, asked only partial help, you didn't do the full extent of vulnerability that you were supposed to show at that life? And at the time you didn't even go to a medicine woman to ask for help, you didn't even reflect whether how I was gathering fruits and vegetables, what are the conditions in my life that was causing my eyesight to go away. Because there is a lesson here also, like if there is a man who asks his wife and his assistant to go and do the gathering, they did the gathering, they found that this better quality herb has to be used, because they also talked with the medicine women, all of them collaboratively came to this conclusion. This man also comes to this conclusion. Once his eyesight is good, now what does he have to do? He has to take the lead from those people also, those who showed that maybe if in X zone of the forest he was going and gathering herbs and vegetables or whatever, nuts and berries, and that X zone doesn't have good quality food, and they have found it in the Y zone now. Should he continue to go and get things from the X zone just because he used to do that 5 years back? Or once his eyesight has healed, should he lean into the understanding and expertise of the other people who have found a better place to gather these herbs? And then if one of your children was now an assistant to you, like they were earlier only a teen, but now in the 5 years they have grown up to be a 20-year-old, and they are now going to be your next assistant. Your assistant has gone and joined some other work or has started doing his own work. At that time you're supposed to train your son also, but maybe your son is also supposed to become more aware as a scientific person, how why X area doesn't have good berries and good nuts, and why area has good berries and nuts. If he is to become a future scientist and he has to delve deeper into resolving this, like how do we solve the problem of the X area giving bad quality nuts and herbs, that could be one of your children's future purpose as well. So you see, your one vulnerability act, if you done in the right way, has this butterfly effect of helping everyone live up to their soul purpose and karma. whereas the if you stop it from happening, none of the other people can live up to their soul purpose and karma also, or they will eventually manifest their soul purpose and karma, but you will not be involved in their manifesting that soul purpose and karma. Because if you are the, say, abusive, oppressive kind of a husband, you didn't want to lean into your wife, but your wife knows you are getting blind, and food is scarce now, everyone is nutritionally getting challenged, so she has to find a way to supply the right nutrition, right food to everyone in the family. So she might underhandedly go and talk to a herbalist and get the medicine from the herbalist, or figure out where to go and find the better quality fruits and berries. She will still do that. If she is a good quality wife and that's her karma to do, she will still nonetheless go and get that job done. And at that time you might feel betrayed, like, where is my wife gone for the, when I'm sitting at home and I need her help, and she's going away for 2 hours outside the home, why is she gone? And if you sit and grumble that I have a toxic wife, or my wife doesn't care about me, again you are accruing all the negative karma of not understanding the circumstances associated with your vulnerability. And there's nothing wrong in you asking, where did you go? But she can give you the right answer only if you are ready to hear the answer that this is your time to be vulnerable, it is her time to do some work. If you're not ready to hear that answer, you will be the abusive, oppressive spouse. But if you do have the understanding that when you are down, your spouse is supposed to do certain things, then you will understand all the elements of balancing life with each other. And same way in the modern world now, slowly society, that's why only has transitioned, because there are husbands like this who, when disabled, won't ask help, but the family still needs help. So the wives have slowly taken over the places where wives can take over. But simultaneously, while the wives were taking over, if the wife has to go outside to do some work, and many women slowly started initially with part-time work, from part-time work they have transitioned into full-time work, or some were work from home women, then they have gone outside the home to do some work. All these women who have slowly transitioned over the last hundreds of years into doing a lot of professional work outside the home, what was the flip that had to happen in gender roles in society? Men had to start becoming the caretakers and nurturers and teachers of their children. So while the woman is working for 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours, and the man is not working, or the man is working from home now, at that time it's the man's time to bond. Because men also, there are so many men who are sad that they don't have as deep a connection with their children. After the children have grown up, they see during their retirement stage that the children are so emotionally bonded to the mom, but they are not bonded to the dad. But the dad also that dad who 100 years back saw this and had a grief in his heart that why are my children not as loving to me, that same man who existed 100 years back and had this experience, or 1000 years back and had this experience, when he died, his next birth on earth will be as a man who has now the opportunity to create that bonding time with their children. So because they had that grief in their heart that my children never loved me as deeply as they loved my wife, I want that kind of a love from my child. You will get that love from your child, but then for you to get that love from your child, you have to become their nurturing caretaker, and you have to also be the man who is allowing the woman to become the breadwinner provider. So the hunter-gatherer role now has to go to the wife, while the nurturing caretaker role has to go to the husband. So if you have lived 10 lives, like in the past, in thousands of years, like 10 of your lifetimes, you led that life where all the time the wife was getting the priority, all the time the wife is getting all the children's love, but wife is getting the children's love and priority. Why? Because for 20 years of their childhood days or 15 years of their childhood days, the mom took care of their needs without them asking. The mom gave them nutritious food, the mom gave them healthy food, the mom, when you are crying, gives you food that is your favorite food. The mom, when you are hurt, gives you medicine when you are hurt. The mom cooks cooks you soups and other things when you are hurt. Mom asks you or spends hours and hours with you in the home life, all of which is creating the deeper meaningful bond, right? The mom who's giving you energy, giving you time, giving you space, giving you freedom, all these things are causing the mom to become the nurturing caretaker. Same way a dad can also become the nurturing caretaker, but he has to do that same equal level of work, right? The same equal level of work that is needed for someone to be a nurturing caretaker. And yeah, not all men, after 10 lives of leading and being the hunter gatherer, you can't suddenly one fine day become the nurturing caretaker. So that's why there has been a slow shift. While slowly women were doing 2 hours of extra work. Some women might have been a stitcher in their home life, doing embroidery, doing home decor, doing gardening activities, and for two or maid activities, whatever they were doing, like 2 hours of slow outside pay work. While the woman was doing that, the man had job losses. If you were a low this scenario that I'm talking about is a low socioeconomic status family's life possibly, and or a lower middle class family. But in the lower middle class family, when the wife was slowly doing these odd jobs, at that time, for 2 hours 4 hours a day, she's doing some job to get some pay. And when would wives do this? Most of the time when they didn't have enough resources that was needed for the family, and the man's earning was not enough, or when their spouse became jobless. So when the spouse is jobless, what most of these lower socioeconomic status men start feeling, they feel worthless, they feel devalued. But instead of feeling worthless and devalued, that is the time when you were meant to take interest in your children's studies, possibly, like while the wife is going out and doing some maid work, or going and working part-time in a factory, or going and working part-time in someone's home as a cook. At that time you are jobless, you are supposed to sit and teach your kid something. You might know how to fix a fan, teach that to your kid. You were a factory worker, you lost your job in a factory, but whatever role you had in your factory, if you were the cleaner in your factory, you teach the job of cleaning to your kid. If you were a fisherman, you teach the job of cleaning fish maybe to your kid while you are cooking, or going and buying fish with your kid while you are teach them the skill of how to identify what's a good quality fish. Whatever job role you had, if you were a farmer, you can start doing home gardening, even if your main maximum 10 hours of gardening skills are gone. But can you still sit at home and do minor home gardening now with your kids? So all these jobs were necessary. There was a purpose to your job loss. But if you don't understand your purpose, you will become abusive, you will become jealous of your wife having a job, you will abuse the wife, abuse the kids, you will start drinking, you will start beating them. And this is not simply a tale of a lower socioeconomic status man or someone in a lower middle class of life. A person middle class also does it, but a middle class person's abuse will be more slightly more covert, possibly little overt, little covert. In a middle class life, the husband might start drinking, might start going out every weekend with their friends for denying that they have a job loss, or might start watching TV for 10 hours. But again, instead of getting engaged more deeply and becoming the caretaking father in the children's life, while the wife is the breadwinner, you are misaligned with your purpose. And a higher class person might start cheating if they experience a lot of losses in their work life. There's a purpose to their loss. Again, when you are a higher class person and one of the richest people in the world, the thing is, those people have the hardest time accepting a loss, when in fact they are the privileged sort who can take a loss very easily. If you are a billionaire and you lose millions, it is nothing for you because you are a billionaire. Imagine that. You have to understand the context. But the thing is, the person who became a billionaire, if especially he wasn't a millionaire when they in their younger days, they have a hard time accepting that loss. But that is the purpose. There is always a purpose to a loss. So if you are a billionaire and you're losing millions, you have to understand that there was a reason behind that loss. There is a direct reason related to business operations associated with it, but there is also a indirect karmic reason. There is also multiple social aspect related reason. There could be future direction of your business activities based reason. All these reasons you have to explore as a billionaire, and you have to have that major loss that seems like a major loss, but unfortunately, actually, realistically speaking, a loss of a billionaire in millions is only the in terms of the decimal point system, it's only 3 decimal points loss, and 1/10 a loss, right? That 1/10 of a loss that you're getting is the same loss as if I am earning 10,000 as a salary. If 3 decimal points of that money is lost for me, should I cry if I'm earning 10,000 as a partial salary for a weekly salary or something, and in that 10,000 if I lose 10 rupees, should I worry about losing 10 rupees? No. But what should I worry if I lost the 10 rupees because the 10 rupees are getting stolen from my purse regularly? I should worry about that. If I lost 10 rupees not because I had to pay some people, I shouldn't worry about that. But if I lost 10 rupees because, and sometimes I should also not worry if some thief came and stole 10 rupees and I can see that that person actually needed that 10 rupees, I should be okay. I could consider it the same as, yes, a thief has stolen and done a sin, but it's the same as me donating 10 rupees to a beggar on the street. So should I worry too much about that also? No. Which 10 rupees should I worry about? If it is continuously a 10 rupee drain happening because my child is stealing, now that is a bad habit for the child to have, or my wife is stealing even though wife earns money, all these things, then you should delve deeply, right? So it's the same thing as as businessman also. When you have 1 million loss and you are a billionaire, that 1 million loss, why did it happen? Is it acceptable wastage? If it is acceptable wastage, you shouldn't bother too much, or you should only observe why that wastage has happened. But if it is some wastage which is acceptable also, but it is something that is meant to drive a change in your work operations or future direction of your business, at a time you need to examine deeply, delve deeply why the loss happened, but in the right way, not in a way of, oh my god, I lost billions and now from being the world's top 10 billionaire, I am the world's top 100 billionaire. If you're sitting and comparing yourself in which position in the world you are at, you have lost the plot about the role you have to play as a billionaire in the world. There's a major role every billionaire has to play in the world, but that role that they have to play will only again manifest in the smaller tribal level, how I gave the example. At the grander billionaire level, controlling many aspects of business functions, controlling many people's livelihood, that person also has to understand that at a much more grander scale. And someone who has the capacity to understand at a grander scale only usually gets to be a billionaire like that. And in fact, those who by fluke might have become a billionaire out of some luck, that's why also will start losing money. Like Donald Trump, he is not learned all his life lessons. That's why his businesses keep going into bankruptcy, because he keeps doing businesses at comparing and seeing someone else he's doing a business but not understanding the deeper things of a business. He keeps hitting bankruptcy, whereas he has the capacity to not hit bankruptcy and have, he doesn't need to even, and maybe he's the kind of a person whose karma was that he never was supposed to be constantly a billionaire. His assets might show he's a billionaire, but he's maybe supposed to operate at a zero level where profit and loss are balanced. But he's constantly at a loss level, and that's why hitting bankruptcy, because he's not doing the right kind of dealings. He doesn't have the right supportive staff, or whatever socioeconomic thing is driving his businesses. They're all messed up socioeconomically, operationally, financially, in multiple ways. And he's following and possibly emulating everything that every businessman in that country does. But he is the perfect storm of everything that everyone does that is wrong, manifesting in his life in the most easily observable public way. There's a reason why he became also the president of the United States, to show that just because you had money doesn't mean you know how to handle money. Also to show that just because you are employing hundreds of people doesn't mean that you will be fruitfully employing those people. And also, just because you keep filing for bankruptcy and the governmental systems are helping you bail out of your bankruptcy doesn't mean that there won't be a day when
you won't be bailed out, because you might have reached your limit for bailing out, and you have reached the place where you have to really push yourself to understand why things were failing, why you have bad advisors, why you haven't developed the skills to understand who is a good advisor, why you haven't developed the skills to understand who should be your right teammates, or multiple things related to him. I'm just giving an example, but whatever he is showing at a mass scale to a mass amount of population is the same thing every billionaire does in some aspects. Now if they learn that lesson from him where they are going wrong, he has served his purpose, because he's been allowed to exist also in this way for many years and decades for a particular purpose, for everyone else to learn from him. From the poorest man to the richest billionaire can learn from his operational and lifestyle choice and other decision making processes, something about him, from him, to improve their own life, or to improve the mindset they hold about certain things in their own life. And I'm sure he has some good qualities too, otherwise he wouldn't have become the president of the United States. So though people diss him for that, his good qualities also need to be emulated by certain people. But his good qualities people won't see if people are blinded by the standard things that are perceived as the good qualities of a human. But the standard things that are perceived as the good qualities of a human, which is a human being very rich, human being born rich, human operating a lot of responsible jobs, these are considered as the standards of leadership. But the reason why he became a leader is actually not because of all these standards at all. Part of it was because of it, but those were the places where he was actually failing as a leader. But he was also succeeding as a human in certain other places, I feel, and that will become evident later on in his life, or maybe after his death, I don't know. But a person doesn't get that public prominence unless he had a deeper purpose related to it, despite making so many mistakes, because he was making a lot of mistakes, and despite that he got that prominence. So from his mistakes people have to learn, but there are evidently some hidden good things he has been doing which people don't understand about him, or very few understand about him. And that if people can start understanding, they will also understand why he won. Like 50% of the population is not stupid. Out of those 50, some did, some were just following what seems like the business sense thing to follow. Some were not following the business sense things to follow. Some were just following someone. And then there are some who really understand what is the goodness about him. And if those people, but those people who will be understanding that about him are going to be only possibly very highly intuitive people, or people who have in-depth knowledge of how he runs his life. Only those two kinds of people will actually get the merit of him as a human being, which is very different from him being a president, him being a businessman, him being a father, him being a whatever he was in his entire decades of his life. Same way with anyone. He's just one example, but it's same thing true of anyone who's famous, anyone who's revered, anyone who is not famous, anyone who's not revered. That's where God balances out the scales, because even if you're revered or not revered, there's always some good things and some bad things, some things that are perceived as good about you but may not be the actual good in that thing, or some things that were perceived to be good in the past, but now that the century is changing, time is changing, certain changes need to be prevalent on earth to align earth back into God's ways. Those things that were perceived to be a good will not be good anymore. That's why only the man who has the capacity to be vulnerable, or understand the purpose behind their vulnerability, to understand why a woman now has to not be the vulnerable one while the man has to be the vulnerable one, those families where this dynamics has been understood well, or where both are allowed to be vulnerable in equal capacity or equitable levels, those families will be having the most balancing life in this century. I hope this video made sense. And in terms of depression and suicidal thoughts, even Donald Trump is a person who is very depressed. People don't realize it, but the reason why he also makes all these some of the errors that have happened in his life have happened in his life because he's a depressed man, because money, beautiful wife, beautiful kids, or even being president of a country doesn't give you the happiness that every human being craves for. True happiness always comes from meaningful connections, and he too doesn't have meaningful connections. So anyone, when they are struggling with meaningful connections, is the time when they will be at the most vulnerable state in life, and at that time the karma of the people who are around them to help them in their vulnerability in the right way they are supposed to help determines the karmic journey or a soul journey, or determines how sooner, how quickly, how deeply that person will get out of their depression led situation. And some of it is the individual has to be vulnerable. For a person like Donald Trump, he has to learn vulnerability. For a person like this girl in the first video, she has to learn vulnerability and leaning into the people who can help her. Whereas for the girl who is suicidal, for her it's not that she didn't lean into the people who were when she needed help, but she has to now get help from the right people who can help her, not from abusive people, exploitative people, mentally ill people, psychologically ill people. If she continues, she may have to start discerning like who is a abusive kind, who is a mentally ill kind, who is a psychologically distorted kind, who is the exploitative kind. Part of her life experience from herself, from all these abuses she has gone through, is to understand who are these abusive personalities, because her future purpose may be to become a therapist who will help those children who are getting abused or who were getting abused just like her. That's why she has this difficult life journey. But part of it is that, but part of it is also that she is vulnerable, she has asked help, but now the right help has to manifest in her life for her to stop being suicidal. Right, meaningful deep connections has to happen in her life. People who balance her, who don't misalign her, who don't exploit her, who understand what is her capacity to be nice, but who also understand what is their role to bring light into her life, to bring if they are privileged, some privileged person only has to help her. Underprivileged person has helped her possibly, but the people she's surrounded with, they are all underprivileged, so they have all lost a little bit about understanding what is a godly way of living. That's why none of them, she knows, has been able to help her in a way she needs help. Because maybe, even she, if she had 10 friends and 10 co-workers, when she lost her job, if all of her co-workers realized that she's in a really vulnerable position, and if she had been vulnerable with them and told them some of her life story, out of those 10 people who understood why she lost her job, some people again could have been done the same thing that the hypothetical tribal man story I told about. Some of them could have given her advice, some of them could have given her some money so that she can pay the rent and not become homeless. Some of them could have also misdirected her, but that was her job, to understand the persons who are misdirecting her, not to trust them, to understand which personality type she should trust, understand the value of the advice she's getting, instead of constantly leaning on herself to take care of herself, which she learnt as a pattern, because from childhood days she has been alone possibly, or her parents didn't take care of her, or she was an orphan, or she was a foster child, and people might not have taken care of her in a deeper way that she needed. But while it is her job to take care of herself in a deeper way that she needs, but it is also her job to lean into other humans and form deeper connections, or allow herself to form those deeper connections, but now discern from her past experiences of abuse, where if someone has been abusive towards her, not to trust that similar kind of personality again. And that doesn't mean you become paranoid in life, but if you want to learn from your life lesson and still stay balanced, you have to always continue bringing God into the equation to ask, like, if you're not able to trust someone, if they are because sometimes what will happen, a person who will come to help you might be exactly very similar to the exploitative person who had exploited her for money, or the sexually assaulted the assaulting person. Another person might come up in her life to offer her a home, and now she may not be able to trust that person. But in order to develop that trust, first she needs a therapist who can help her align her thoughts in distinguishing between, or in discerning between, who is a person who is trustworthy, even if they look very similar to the person who has betrayed her. Another thing might be, she has to constantly, if she moves herself closer to God will align her in a way where she will understand when she can trust someone, when she shouldn't trust someone, or when some of the times she has to use her own intuitive skills as well. So I hope this was insightful, and if you have any questions, please drop a comment. Thank you.